we're not here.
Hey, Car.
Hello.
Hey, Gabe.
It's amazing how many of you know each other from other classes and whatnot.
I don't recognize a whole lot of people. Hi.
Hello.
That's so weird.
And you know what? And I gotta, if I wasn't, a big fan of distance education, I'm gonna ask Jordan to tell everybody. Jordan, where are you right now?
I'm in Boston.
Love it.
Wow.
Love it. I'm gonna ask Jordan to. Somebody's watching me on YouTube. If you're watching me on YouTube,
Where are
just
you right now?
silence the stream on YouTube. I'm getting an echo. All right, cool. Let me see if I have everybody who at least said they were going to sign up. Angelica, that's what I'm waiting for. Let me open. I'll use Twitter over here. Yeah. So let's do. There are some openings in the GHO if anyone wants to transition over. Okay, let's see if I get any takers. Nice spot. Okay. Does anybody have any questions, issues, concerns, or anything like that before we get the ball rolling? Anything I can help you with? Any questions I can answer?
I'm good.
Okay. Let me just open my grade center so I can keep track of who's who's here. Virtual class. I will say that the all of the Twitter so far, for those of you doing it, has been nothing short of outstanding. I know the provost at St. Peter's. I got a retweet or a like from one of my class tweets. So I know we're getting noticed down in Jersey City. I'm certainly glad that's going well. I know most of you have. I've been trying to keep up with the grading. The problem is you all are working faster than I can grade, which is a good thing. Caitlin. Some of you are. Has anybody started working on the disabilities webinar yet?
Not yet.
No.
Don't wait too much longer, because today's Wednesday. We're halfway through week 2, and it's really due for the most part in 2 weeks. So, now is the time to start. Trust me when I tell you, because I just did one that I'll probably post. It's not an LD, but it was for ExamSoft, the company that does computer-based testing, and that took me beyond a significant amount of time to do. Link for GHO. So if I were you, I would get started on that sooner rather than later. Uh-oh. Oh, there you are. Okay, I got a couple of transitioners over from the YouTube world. That's good. We've got plenty of room. We're still big enough so we can see everybody. Okay. So let me plug in my MacBook because I get much better clarity on the MacBook, but it grades. If those of you that are using anything that doesn't have electric connected to it, be mindful of your battery because it's going to drain rather quickly because you're using your camera. If you have a most laptops, you're going to hear your fan start to spin within probably about 10 minutes. That's normal because your computer's getting warm because it's doing a lot of processing, especially with the camera. So, all right. So if nobody's got any questions about any housekeeping type things, let me just go back to TweetDeck really quick. No one's. You should get a church. No. Okay. No messages. No notifications. All right. So let's talk about Mr. Grimes. What do we think about our good friend, Mr. Grimes?
He was very cold.
Okay. What do we mean by cold? I mean.
I felt he was very rigid, and he wasn't willing to change his style to accommodate kids. He was very hard and rough around the edges.
He didn't listen.
What do you mean he didn't listen? Before we go back to strict, what about he didn't listen?
I felt like he didn't listen to the subtle cues that they were giving off.
Okay.
Like they were clearly confused when he was yelling at them in the beginning. They were just like staring blankly.
Okay.
He almost like punished them for not knowing the answers, instead of helping them.
Okay, and a lot of this stuff I want you, for those of you that are in the classroom, think about this. How many times have you done that? Have you punished for not knowing the answers, or acted the way Mr. Grimes did? Because I know I have.
I have.
Yeah. I mean, he was also really negative too. Because I can see that he's trying to do it to motivate them, but at the same time, he definitely deterred them from listening or learning at all.
He kind of shamed them.
Exactly.
Okay. Keep going.
I agree that he has to develop a rapport with his students, but he could certainly work on that. But one thing that I do see is he says it like it is sometimes, and sometimes kids need to get told what they need to do, and they're too coddled sometimes. So sometimes telling them that they need to do something isn't necessarily the wrong thing. I do think he needs to develop a better rapport, though.
But if half your class is failing, it's not necessarily the students either. It can be that he never looked at himself as the way he was teaching.
No, I agree, but sometimes it's also, we don't know what those students are like. We don't know what level they are. We don't know anything about the students when watching the video. But sometimes, I see myself, sometimes you have to tell students exactly how it is. And like I said, sometimes I feel that they're too coddled.
I agree with that. I agree students can be coddled, and it's generational, but I do feel that to some extent, if more than half your class is failing, as a school counselor, I constantly think, is it a partnership between the teacher and the student as opposed to just one-sided? I never think it's one-sided on that end, especially if it's that lopsided.
As a counselor, I feel that if all those students are failing, then it's got to be the teacher. I don't feel that it's coming from both sides. I feel like it has to be the teacher, because how could they all be failing?
Well, it wasn't really all failing. I felt like the students were confused by all means, and the video, was very tongue-in-cheek, but you didn't see if everyone failed. He said it was his. I would never say it's the worst class. You should never say it's a classroom. It's your worst class.
Yeah, I agree.
There should never be any sense of that nature. But I definitely think that students, when they smell blood, they smell blood.
I also feel like as the teacher, if you feel it's the worst class, it means you did something differently, or those students are learning differently.
Yeah.
So if you need to go back and reteach the lesson because the summative assessment was that varied than it was in the past, there is something different, and you need to change something because they still need to learn the material.
So you need to teach it differently.
Right. You need to adjust the way you're teaching it, or go more hands-on if he was just lecturing, like he did in the second half of the video. He related it to their lives, and all of a sudden the light bulb went on for most of them.
Right.
I think that sometimes when you're on the other end and you are a teacher, you kind of forget that you need to kind of scale things down in order for kids to understand, and I don't think he understood that like the first time we saw it. when I go and observe my teachers teaching, I look at them and I'm like, I'll ask the questions. And I'll turn to a student and I'll be like, do you know what he meant? And they're like, mm-mm. I'm like, well, why don't you ask the question? And they're like, we don't want to. We don't want him to make us look stupid. So I think that's a huge concern. That I have to say in my school, my teachers are very, very, I know I'm sure all teachers are smart, but my math teacher is just unbelievable. He can be a professor. I ask him questions and he knows the answer like that, where I actually have to work out the problem and everything. And in an alternative school, I don't want to say that the kids are lower learners or anything like that, but we do have collaborative classes, and he just keeps going, and I'm like, you just need to slow it down a little bit. And like one of you said, when he started relating it to the normal everyday life, that's when the kids understood it. And I think that sometimes when teachers can relate their lessons to everyday living, it's easier to understand. Not only understand, but actually, truly comprehend what the teacher's trying to get across to them. So
I actually think that can be a huge challenge in general. I mean, I'm not a teacher. I'm not in the classroom. I'm career changing. But what I found is that, even in my career dealing with adults, a lot of times I'll be in a situation where it can be hard to bring yourself back down to really understand what it is that people don't know, and that's probably in many ways where a lesson needs to start. I know sometimes I'll be dealing with executives, but I'm talking to them about things that they just don't know much about, and occasionally it can be challenging with to really get them to the point of backing them all the way up. Since they're more senior, it can be difficult. And I mean, it seemed like in the first area he really struggled with that, but then in the second, did much better with it.
Okay. I heard about real world context, which is extremely important. Anything at any age you can relate to something that these students understand, you're golden. There's a lot that, if you can. I'm in an all boys school. Okay. They sometimes don't believe that we're human as teachers. Any adults in the building. This tries to be, was it this year or last year? We do a little TV broadcast in the morning, and we do the prayer and the pledge and announcements. They watch TV. So they, one morning they decided to use wrestling theme music as their introductory music. They used John Cena's theme. So of course, I being the person that I am, I actually waited till they went off the air, so I went behind the anchor. I just went in. I didn't say a word. They lost it. They couldn't believe that I was a fan of professional wrestling. Been a fan of professional wrestling for a long time, But they were shocked. They had me of all people. Once you take anything, whether it's math or English or whatever, and you relate it to their own lives, and something that they understand, you're golden and you're a hero. That's really important. I heard people talking about, rigidity and all that. For those of you that are in the classroom, when talk to me about balance. When is it? How are you? Because depending on, especially if you're in middle or high school, how do you interact with some classes versus other classes? Are you the same if you teach 3 sections of English 1? Are you the same person in all 3 sections?
I don't think you can be the same person in every section that you have. I teach 4 different world history sections for 7th, 2 8th, and every kid is different, every class is different, but we have them leveled in groups. So, I mean, you have to teach each class differently every year.
I think it depends on the personality of the kid. I mean, I work in a boys' school too, and in the classroom, I can get a group of boys who are, boisterous and a group of boys who are very serious, and you approach one group a different way, and you get all different reactions. The dynamic of a classroom is it's such a puzzle. Each year it evolves differently. I agree with you there in that sense.
And I think all the kids interact differently with each other. As I said, I don't teach, but I do coach. And every year, depending on the different groups of kids I get, the way they interact together also requires that I do things differently. I can't teach the same skills the same way every time, not only based on their competency level, but also just based on how they work together. If it's an all-boys group or if it's more girls, or depending on how I've got a lot of kids who are super boisterous, and that's kind of why they're in sports. So just depending on their interactions with each other can make it changes the way I have to teach them.
Even in first grade, from like year to year, last year my kids were way more independent and can do a lot on their own. But this year my kids need to be babied a little bit more. They need more help doing things. They don't know how to pass out papers. They don't know how to, like staple things, just like basic stuff. They have a hard time this year with it versus last year. I could kind of let them go off on their own, but this group needs a little more guidance. So every year that does change. So even having the same 20 kids all day, it's still the same thing. I have to treat them all kind of differently from year to year.
I teach first grade also, and this is my first year. So I can't compare year to year, but I had my 3 lowest students out for about a week straight. And that week was completely different than any other week I had this year, because I was able to speed things up. I was able to give more group time and more activity play related to the lessons, because those kids were finishing their work so fast and they were able to go do those things on their own. And it's just the difference, because with those 3 kids I have to slow down so much because they are so behind.
It gets stressful having to slow down all the time.
Uh-huh.
It must have been a nice, easy week.
Oh, it was a great week. And it was nice because those other, I only have 15 kids. But those other 12 kids got all the attention that I wish I could give them all the time.
Yeah.
Because so much is focused on the other 3. It's a hard balance.
It is.
I teach 5 sections of 7th grade Spanish, and I'm run into the same problem. And I know this because my students themselves tell me. They're like, Miss Lopez, why is this class doing this, and why are we doing this? But unfortunately, some classes perform lower than others. Like this class, I have 8 IEP students with like 3 504s. So obviously, the class itself is going to be way slower than one of my classes where I only have 12 students, and they're all going to go into honor Spanish next year.
8 IEP and how many 504?
3 504s.
So 11. How many are in the class?
Total of 21.
So half your class is classified in one way or another.
Yes.
Any special inclusion set up, or is it a total mainstream? Any aides in the room?
No, because of world language. I had asked in the beginning of the year, and they told me world language does not get any sort of help. So I'm all there by myself. And it's really hard because sometimes I have to focus on one kid or like a group of kids, and then you have the higher kids who are performing well and do get it have to be behind. So I've had to find different strategies on how to get them at the same level as my other classes. And sometimes it takes like, okay, go take a magazine where they're reading on their own in Spanish, and it's a hard balance to have that many kids with no help. So I completely understand where everyone's coming from in that sense.
Let's go there for a minute. That's I'm getting echo from somebody. No, there it goes. You think about when you've got a heterogeneous mix of kids. You've got, let's say, your high level, your on par, and then lower level. What's the other part of special ed that we all forget about?
The gifted?
Gifted and talented. That's special ed, because those kids are, achieving beyond where the par is for the class. So sometimes in a situation like that, you've got, your kids that are on par, they're okay. You spend a lot of time with your kids that are on a lower end. So then what about the kids that have gotten beyond what you're trying to do? It's just can be just as frustrating for them. Trying to find that balance is I can't begin to tell you how difficult that is when you're dealing with think about those 8 kids that have IEPs. Potentially, maybe 2 of them have the same disability or the same need, but you might have 8 kids with 8 different needs. How do I address that without potentially any help? And I think that, in a sense, I think it's kind of a good thing because as a teacher, it makes you much more alert and adept to things that are going on in your classroom and kids with different needs. You're able to adapt and come up with strategies. All right, well, here's how I'm going to exactly as Alba said. Now I've got magazine reading and for the kids that are higher achievers. I've got something for them to do. Sometimes it becomes that they're working with helping the kids that aren't getting it.
Right. Yes.
But coming up with those strategies is key.
I've seen myself do that a lot because I went to my vice principal earlier in the year, and I even asked for a computer so that my gifted students who are getting it could work on the computer sometimes. But unfortunately, we couldn't get one this year. But I definitely see myself, like you said, more alert and see myself that I've grown so much in 1 year with just that class. Like I've been more diverse with my teaching. And it's given me ideas. It sounds weird, but it's actually helped me to teach my advanced kids better as well. So, it's a great learning experience this year. So, I can only move forward.
You will find that, and for those of you that aren't in yet, that's going to be the best way when you learn is when you go in and do it, because it will take you, and those that have been in a while can hopefully agree with me, a good 2 years. The first year, the goal is survive the first year. And I think Shannon said you're in your first year. That's your goal, is not get fired and come back next year. And then the second year is when you try and fix everything that you learned in the first year and try to make it better. I don't think I hit my stride until I was at least in my third year, like how I wanted my classroom. And then as I evolved as an educator, I started to change once I felt more comfortable. And I've said this on any number of occasions to any number of classes. I started teaching in 2000. I was doing technology and teaching, and I've done that throughout my career. How I am now in a classroom and how I am, how I was in 2000 are two totally different things. And it's not something that I learned in a book. A lot of it is I learned from experience. A lot of it is how I've learned teaching at St. Peter's. Because if I'm going to encourage this type of teaching, I better model it, and I better be willing to at least try it. But you learn a lot from yourself, and that's going to be the best way. While all this coursework is great, you're going to come up with, fill your toolbox, if you will. A lot of it will come when you actually get in the classroom and you learn and you make mistakes and you realize, okay, I can't do this again, I got to do something different and so forth. But that's where the real learning comes. Those of you that are in your first year, second year, you can attest to that. Anything else about any other thoughts about Mr. Grimes? How he started off, how he finished. Anything that's relevant today? That was 1947. Anything that's relevant today? We hit the real context. I wanted to say something that what Amy said before about I don't want to ask a question because the teacher's going to make me feel stupid. Okay? One of the most powerful things, when I go to observe classes and I don't see questions, or when a teacher says, "You have any questions? Are you sure?" And as a teacher, there are times I know the content isn't there or there's something that you're missing. Why isn't anybody asking a question? And that could be an indicator of, all right, something going on here. And when I go in to observe classes, I look at, I like what Amy does. Ask the kid, why I talk to the kids, because that's much as it's one thing to observe. I look at the teacher, the teaching style, the classroom environment, but I might ask the kids, hey, what's going on? Why did you ask a question? Or does this happen all the time? Or there's there are times where a kid might, or the class as a whole might throw a teacher under the bus because the teacher is really bad, and you kind of catch that. I got observed once, and there was was a small class. The principal was in there, and I had a kid who was just running his mouth. I think, and these were seniors in high school. It was an AP class in computer science. And the three other kids, one kid who was like, I'd say one of your higher achievers, model type of kid. He turns around to this other kid because the principal's in the room. I think the principal caught it. He looked at him and he mouthed, I'm not going to say it, watch my camera. And the other kids were like, the one kid was just like, and he stopped. That was one of the greatest compliments as a teacher I ever got, because those kids knew that this kid is trying to either sabotage or, try to make me look bad or just didn't know any better. And the other kids took control of that, and that was a real, and that was 5 years ago. And that's still one of my memorable teaching moments, is that they just stepped up, but that goes to the classroom environment. What type of environment do you set with your students? And you can see, yes, the Mr. Grimes is a very staged, the before and after, but look at, think about yourselves. How do you set the environment? How do you want to set the environment? Some people say, don't smile till Christmas. Some people say, there's like all these different, golden rules of teaching. A lot of it you're going to find on your own when you do it. If you threaten, you got to follow through on the threat, because if you don't, you're done. Because where I work, I don't know about your students, but my students, they pick up everything. They know what I'm going to do. They know if I'm going to bring my left hand to my mouth, if I'm going to call for my right hand. They know everything. Okay? And that's one of those things, I'll give you one, because it's fine. I have no problem giving you embarrassing stories about myself. The first year I was teaching, gave a test. Test was over quickly. Said, all right, you do work, whatever. And then they're talking. I told them like 5 times to stop. And then I said, if I hear another peep out of you, that's it. After school, all of you. Naughty. And as soon as I said it, I was like, uh-oh. Of course, what do I get like 3 seconds later? Peep. Okay, you're all after school. You can't do that. Now, wait a minute. I have a problem with authority to begin with. So, a kid telling me I can't do this. All right, so you can't stay after today. You'll stay after 2 hours tomorrow. We'll do the hour I was going to keep you today, the hour tomorrow. So now I'm up to 2 hours. By the end of the day, the vice principal had 6 phone calls from the parents. Who the hell is this guy? What the hell is he doing? Why is he? What did the vice principal say to me? You made a mess. Clean it up. Okay. So now I've got, and that was probably one of the best things he could have told me. He's like, I'm not going to solve your problem. You are. So the next day I went in. Who did it? A couple kids fessed to it. I'm not sure all of them to this day. I think some of them just, took it on the chin. So I said, all right, so you're going to stay after school tomorrow, and I'm going to sit with you. So we all sat detention together. Never had a problem again. But I learned the hard way. I didn't learn it in a book. I learned as soon as I said it. If I'm going to threaten, I got to follow through on the threat. I followed through on the threat, but I should have thought about it before I did it. Okay? So, but that's what you learn from experience. That's what you learn. I can't teach you, nor can anyone else teach you a classroom management. If they claim to, they're wrong. Because the only way you learn classroom management is when you do it. Okay? When I look for a teacher, I don't care. It's important you know the content. Don't get me wrong. But if you can't manage a classroom, not interested. Not interested. I can't have someone who can't manage a classroom and the kids are hanging from the ceiling. Just can't happen. And you see that with Mr. Grimes. Like, look at the second part. Like, he actually made an effort. He made an effort to on their level, something they're going to understand. Yes, they're 1947 analogies, but still, think about that. That's how different. And think about yourselves, because part of a course like this is an opportunity for self-reflection and for growth as an educator. I would really like to be this. I was put in this year, a little over a month ago, I had to cover 2 classes for the rest of the year, 2 computer classes. Actually, they're 4 sections over 2 periods. Wasn't expecting to. I walked in the first day, and the kids are like, they know my reputation. I don't take crap. They're like, this is going to be awful. There was already parent complaints. I didn't even say a word yet. And I've said to myself, I can either go in there and be whatever word you want to describe or whatever word you want to use, or I could be, cool, as they say. And I did. I said, here's the work, here's what we got to do. And all of a sudden, it was like all the juniors now, like, oh, Spiegel's not so bad. I'm like, because I made a conscious effort to that's how I wanted to be. I was the Mr. Grimes after. If I went as Mr. Grimes before, forget it. They would have eaten me alive. So any other thoughts about? Go ahead.
I think Mr. Grimes had a hard time because he didn't establish any procedures and rules in his classroom. And that's the most important thing in classroom management. When you have that, you'll have a better time in your class.
How many of you that are at least, actually it doesn't matter what, how many of you set on the first day, tell your students these are the rules?
Well, I teach first grade too. We make our rules together.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, how many of you do that? That's one of those concepts that when I explain that to my parents, they think that's foreign, because why would a teacher ask the students to make, the rules?
It's more meaningful to them.
They had a say in it, so they're more inclined to follow them.
Sure.
What I say to them is, this is what I expect from you. Now you come up with the list of what you expect of me as a teacher. That's what I tell my kids. So first I tell them what I expect. I set my rules so that they know what I want them to be too. And then they come, and then like the next day, I literally spent like maybe the first whole week of school going through rules and expectations and stuff. So then I have them tell me, okay, now you guys are going to come up with a list as a class, and I post them. Like every single section is a different list, and every single class has different expectations. So the way that they explain it to me is the way that I act with them. So that's what I do.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. What do you expect of me? Here's what I expect of you. What do you expect of me? And that's something you have to be prepared for what you're going to get back.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, I used to, when I first started, I had a list of rules, and there are some people now that I really don't be late. There are don't how do I put this, because I know this is going to be recorded on YouTube. Well, let's just say this: don't BS the BSer, right? Don't, and I get away with it because I'm in love with the school. I went to Bergen Catholic, so I'll tell them, you're thinking about it, I've tried it twice. So things you could get away with somebody else, I know the tricks, and believe me, I know all the tricks. You got to go to the bathroom? Don't ask. Get up and go. If I find you're doing a lap, if I find you're going to hang out in guides, if I find out that you're going to go try and get lunch early, you're done. And then we'll take our Maslow triangle about all our physiological needs on the bottom, and I'll throw it out the window. But that's on you if you screw it up, because I'm giving you the opportunity to not have to worry about, asking, can I go to the bathroom? Get up and go. You're not going to draw attention to yourself, I'm trusting you that if you've got, something to do, if you got to go, then you go, So I really don't have a lot of real, big rules, but the big rules that I have are really important. Don't be late, hand your work in on time, and I don't want to hear excuses. If you're thinking about an excuse why you didn't do your work, you could have had time to do your work. That's it. I make it simple. I really like that about what do you expect of me? That'd be a great question on the first day of class to ask, what do you expect of me as a teacher? And like I said, as long as you're prepared for what you get in return, that's a great question. That's a great question. What do you expect of me as a teacher? And some of it might be, well, no homework. Well, okay, I can't do that. But
I've definitely gotten that.
Oh, I'm sure I can only imagine what you got in return. But that's a great way to go about it, making the rules together. What do you feel is important? What rules do you want? Because I don't care what age group, kids want structure and they want discipline. Even though they would never admit that, that's what they want. They want someone to tell them, these are the rules, this is the structure, this is what I want. Whether they're going to admit it or not, that's what they want.
I think a big thing in my school, and my biggest concern is, and all my kids know, is that I demand respect. Sorry.
That's okay.
When when I usually speak to them, it's in an auditorium of 90 kids, an auditorium of 300 kids. When I go to the high school, sometimes I'll be speaking in front of 500 kids because I work district wide. And when I approach them, I start off with, I have one rule: when I talk, you don't. And they all just like get serious because I'm tiny. I'm a little, I don't look like I'm older, whatever. So they're like, yeah, okay. And as I continue, I'll call out someone if they're talking, or if someone else is talking and someone talks over them. And like you said, you went to school there, so you kind of know the deal. I'm a Garfield girl, so either I went to school with these kids' parents, or I coached cheering for 8 years. I coached their brother or their sister,
Sure.
So, but I think the biggest thing is compassion. If you show someone that you're real and that you're compassionate, I do think it goes a long way. And I can say in my school, I have security guards who are retired police officers. I have people who've been teaching for 20 years. And they'll approach my kids in the wrong way, and I'll walk up and I'll be like, Naz, pick up your pants, or Naz, put on your shirt, because we have uniforms. They'll be trying to get the kid to put on his uniform. I walk in and I'll see it, and he'll be like, all right, Miss Sabani. And they're like, my security guards approach me, they're like, you bribe these kids? And I'm like, no, I just asked them. I get on their level. If a kid is crying on the floor in my hallway, like this morning, one of my kids' dogs died. A lady made a sharp turn. Her father was bringing the dog out to go to the bathroom. A lady went over the curb, and her dog was ran over. This kid comes to school, and she's crying on the floor. 3 teachers walked right past her. I sat down with her, and I was like, Kim, you okay? And she's like, Miss Sabani, she's like, so many teachers passed me, and you're the only one who stopped. So I think that getting on their level, or respecting them and receiving respect back is huge. And I do feel that you got to be compassionate. You have to love what you do, and you have to be real. And if you're not, kids are going to see that. Kids know, whether a person is playing them or not. So, for me, that's huge. And my kids know that, and I think that's why I don't have not only classroom management, I don't have any issues. I've never, in 8 years, I think I had an issue with one kid, and it's because he slapped a girl in the face, and, I had to write it up. But no, in 10 years, actually, because, in 10 years. So, for me, management's not a problem, because I think I have compassion, and when that's part of your everyday, Bible, in a sense, it's easier, I think.
That's a great sometimes you have to sit on the floor, you have to how many times I'm aware, because I don't like it when what happens to me. I don't like to tower over. I don't like to generally my first day routine 9 times out of 10 is I'm always sitting. I like to do a circle when I can, just because it's different. But I like a circle because when I put my kids in a circle, there's no place that's more important than anybody else. And when I am part of the circle, I'm just as equal as all of them. I think that kind of stuff. When you sit at when you park yourself at a lunch table, when you sit next to someone who's got a problem, how many times you're kind of so caught up and you don't think about that. The kids don't understand or won't say, oh, I'm at school now. Let me leave all my baggage at the door. Anything that's going on in my life, let me leave it, and I'll pick it up at 3 o'clock, when I go home. I'm a big fan of Maslow. One of my favorite quotes is you can't even get near, or you can't attack the Bloom stuff until you fix the Maslow stuff. Right? So the Maslow triangle, all your, you can't be that actualization. You can't do all that content creation that's on the top of the pyramid if you got to go to the bathroom or you're hungry. And I never really thought about that until I started teaching it, and I'm like, why am I punishing these kids and telling them they can't eat in class? Glasses, okay, no glass, but why am I, no, you can't drink because, well, if I go to a meeting, I bring a water bottle. If I'm hungry, I eat. I don't wait for 6-period lunch. So why am I punishing these kids? And you know where I got that from? I had a student a couple years ago who used to teach. I know it's Hudson County, and it was wherever he was in like the basement. So he never really got a lot of administrative traffic. So it was always, you want to eat? That's fine. Don't make a mess. And I think stuff like that is important when you think about these kids have physiological needs. They've got safety concerns. Maybe they've eaten and they went to the bathroom, but they're getting bullied. And I never really thought about that Maslow triangle, until I started teaching it, and now I apply it to my classroom. I'm more aware of, if kids are having an issue or if there's something going on or whatever the case is, to bring that to the forefront. So this way you can actually learn. You can, self-actualize, and then you can do all the higher level Bloom's taxonomy and all that. We deal with things in today's educational environment that when I was a kid, they may have had, but they certainly never put names to it. Like school anxiety. I've got kids that are legitimately afraid to come to school. Are we going to say, what, suck it up, kid, and no, because in 2016, it's not like, once I realized as a teacher, I can't teach and or act like it was in 1991 at Bergen Catholic, I made a step in my professional career. Because, there are kids that have all sorts of issues that we didn't either have names for or just didn't really care about 20 years ago, where now it's really important that we do. And I think that's a big part of being a teacher, the compassion, but also the, how do I deal with kids that are going through something that I've never experienced before? All that stuff is important. So, any other thoughts about Mr. Grimes? Let's quick for a couple minutes talk about the 2020 video about discipline. When discipline goes too far, should we put the 5-year-old in handcuffs and perp walk them out of the building?
Holy Moses, those were extreme.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
Initial thoughts on that video?
I didn't know they could do that.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that
neither
19
did I.
states still, true? Is that still allowed in, 19 states, I think they said?
Yeah.
Corporal punishment?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like in Texas, forget it. It's all,
Crazy. Yeah.
It's,
Oh, my gosh.
There are some states where the parents can sign a waiver that says, yes, you have my permission to beat my child. Yes.
I've had a parent say that to me this year. You have just as much authority as me. You need to discipline my child. And I was like, I would never do that. And they were like,
Yeah,
all right, I
it's
just want you to
because
know you're on my team. And I was like, okay.
I would lose my teaching license.
It's so funny because we're mandated reporters, and I can't even. I mean, we all are, but I can't even imagine, all the things I saw there. It's unbelievable. It's crazy.
You could get mad during the day, but I don't think I would ever call the police. I don't think I've ever gotten that mad at a kid, especially for burping, like that one kid.
Yeah.
Or the graffiti.
I know that one kid was burping.
Or the difference between graffiti and writing your name on the desk.
How many of your schools have zero tolerance policies about anything?
Mine does.
Mine did.
That's goes back to the classroom management thing. If you're gonna have the rule, you gotta enforce it. And if writing on a desk is writing on a desk.
But to arrest them?
I'm not defending it. I'm trying to
suspension. I could see. Detention.
I could see disciplining them, but not arresting them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd be happy as a parent if my kid got handcuffed and because he had a temper. I'm hoping he would have he or she would not have a temper tantrum, to begin with. But I'm not sure I'd be happy if they were brought out of the school in handcuffs.
Same, and I
at
feel
five.
like a lot of those were done without the parents' permission as well.
Mhm.
I
I
feel
see. Yeah, I
like they
noticed
were
that.
contacted first before the parents were.
Sure.
By law, you don't have to contact the parents, which is something that's super difficult for me because
Crazy.
I meet my parents. I'm with them all the time, and as I was watching the video, that's like my life. We get courses on restraining students. Our security guards. Then again, I deal with 6th through 12th graders, but I do work on the elementary level. And at one of our schools, we have a behavioral classroom, and there's certain kids that you have to restrain, and you have to restrain them properly. And one thing that I thought about when I was watching it was I was an elementary school counselor when I first started, and I get called to the trailer, and that's where one of our special ed classes was, and the teacher was pregnant, and the little girl she wrote like on her face, and she wrote like devil, but she wrote devil so the teacher would see her. That's how like smart she was, as if she was like in a mirror. And she went to go hurt herself. And even at that point, like, we would never call the cops. I mean, the cops are at my school probably every week, but it's because a kid brought a knife to school or different things like that, weed, whatever. But when I saw like the little things that they were called for, I'm like, oh my God, the cops would be at my school literally every period if because my kids, even though we claim we have a zero tolerance, our tolerance is very high for everything that they do. But it's scary because there are some schools that, like especially when a kid does something serious, they don't have to call the cops and, the parents. And to me, that's crazy. If I got a call from Barfield PD, hi, your son is at the police station, I would feel like, why didn't the school at least give me a heads up that my child was being brought there? And that's what we do. I mean, as soon as that kid gets his, hands cuffed, I'm on the phone with the parent. Listen, there was an issue with your son. Unfortunately, he got arrested. There's been times when I've even gone to the police station to meet the parent there because I know that the parent will freak out. I mean, there's been times when cops have restrained kids and in my school for obviously more serious issues, but not really, no. Just the cop didn't like the way the kid was talking to him when they came to the school. And, like, cops would, like, push my kids down, and our floors are concrete. And I'm like, and I literally will turn my back and cry. And my principal's like, go in the office, because he knows I'm a mush. And it's sad. It's sad when you see these things. But it's real.
Now, do these arrests remain on their record?
100%. Until they're 16, they remain there. Yep. Most of my kids are younger than 16, so I mean, obviously, when they turn 17, it's gone. But if they're adults, because I do have kids up until 21 in high school, and they remain there. It's sad.
Wow, that's crazy.
I had a girl. A boy came into school. He smelled like marijuana, and security called me, and they're like, "Hey, I think we smell something." So I go in there, and I was like, "Oh, definitely." And I didn't find anything in the kid's jacket. So he's like, "Oh, check his girlfriend's purse. He always puts stuff there." When I went in her purse, I found a knife, probably about 7-8 inches long. And I was like, oh my God. Now, I adore this kid, adore her. I didn't have on gloves. I wasn't expecting to find a knife. My nurse was freaking out. She's like making me wash my hands after. But unfortunately, she got arrested, and she was not able to return back to school, and she's a senior. And literally, and she got handcuffed in my office. And the reason why she had the knife on her, not that I agree with her, but 2 weeks before, she got her head bashed into the sidewalk because she was jumped by another one of our students. So, and it's sad because now this kid's future is done, and she has a record now, and she's like, Miss Bonnie, where am I going to work now? And it eats me up inside because, something as stupid as that. And I told her, you have to be mindful of the company that you keep, because if you weren't dating him, we would have never searched your bag. And then I think the other way, what if this girl flipped out and God forbid, killed a person with this knife? So maybe we saved her, from getting a worse charge. I don't know.
Let me just.
That's true.
Yeah, Amy, and what did you need? Because this is one of those I want you to all put in your notebooks or your brain somewhere. What did you need because in order to look in her purse?
Just suspicion that there was something going on. Honestly, I didn't even need anything. They just said she walks in with him. That's it. We have signs at every single door in our building. Your property is our property. As soon as you walk through those doors, we can search anything that belongs to you.
Yeah, in New Jersey, the standard is reasonable suspicion, and that's what you had. You had a reasonable suspicion to believe that they're dating. The kids say it. Okay, I'm not, and I wasn't doing a full body search or clothes. I'm looking specifically at pocketbook. Here's what I'm looking for. But it's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't find drugs, but I found a knife. So, but I wasn't looking for that. That's what you found.
It's so crazy because the cops that come to our school can't search our kids, but I'm allowed to search my kids.
We did that a couple of years ago. We had two Bob threats in a Catholic school, mind you, in the course of maybe 2 or 3 weeks. The second time, when we brought them in, it took us about 2 hours. But every kid, we went through every bag. The amount of crap we found. We didn't find one bomb. We didn't find anything that was explosive. But I was like, really, okay. And then there was a lot of conversation that happened after that, because although we weren't looking for this contraband, that's interesting, and it was like, oh, I always thought you were, but you need a reasonable suspicion, and the cops need probable cause. We had the cops there. So that if we found something, we said, hey, officer, cuff him, then at that point they could get involved. But in New Jersey, it's reasonable suspicion. That's all you need.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I tell my kids, because sometimes if we do smell marijuana, because our kids check in their jackets, their bags, cell phones, everything, and the room has cameras on it at all times. And when I go through bags, it's like 70 out of 90 of my kids have eye drops. So I tell them, I'm like, unless all of you have severe allergies that our nurse doesn't know of, there's no reason to have eye drops in your bag. Like, obviously, they're most likely all smoking weed, and I'm just like, what are you thinking? And these are the things that I tell them. I'm like, are you kidding me? And now when I go through them, since I said that, I mean, maybe I have 5 kids with, eye drops. 2 of them do have severe allergies, but I'm just like, eye drops, really? I don't even have eye drops, and I have bad allergies. They're just, they don't think.
That's true. Any other thoughts on on severe discipline? On discipline goes too far? Anything that came up in those 2020 videos?
I thought the 5-year-old in the handcuffs was by far the craziest to me. Granted, I don't know what was really happening there, but...
Thank you. There's something happened before and something happened after.
Only because I had a severe issue like that this year with one of my kids who's 6. Yeah. And she was ripping my room apart every other day, and I had a lot of in and out stuff, but I just think they're so little.
Yeah, there's definitely there's definitely something else going on.
Yeah.
I know we have a good relationship with our police department. There's a lot of times where it's, all right, hey, you guys handle this. If there are certain times where they would have to get involved, but a lot of times, this is an internal thing. You handle it. But yeah, there's I can't get my head around if there's ever a rationale really to put any kid in cuffs unless like drugs, weapons, something like that. Like I just can't, because you can't take that away. The image, and especially because I know there are schools that do it. If you perp walk the kid out the building, you can't take. Oh yeah, wow, I did. Oops, we made a mistake. As I don't have a visual aid, but as every kid, I have to use a real phone. As every kid is going, watching them as they go. Now all of a sudden it's all over. It's social media, So that's you better be sure you're doing something right, So
Right, you
but
can't take that back.
yeah, you can't. You can't once it's out there.
Yeah.
But there are some times where it's legit, absolutely, in Amy's case, that's absolutely the kid's got to be arrested or whatever, that happens. So, any other thoughts about the 2020 or anything that we thought about Mr. Grimes that we didn't,
Elaborate on Caitlin's comment about one of her kids. I'm in the room right next to her. So
actually Caroline helped me a lot through this process.
her student, when she was having like her meltdown, Caitlin just told her kids to get out of the room and they would go into my room and she would handle it with the guidance counselor and whoever else. So it was like a team effort, but I can't see putting a kid like that in handcuffs. You know what I mean? Like there are other ways of handling it. Like get the other kids out of the room, like don't make a show out of it. Explain what's going on, and then I think she's on home instruction now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's there are other ways of handling it. I just think like excessive force, because then what's that kid gonna know when she gets older? When she was 5, she was put in handcuffs. Like that's what she's gonna remember, and that's what she's gonna I don't want to say be used to, but that's what's gonna happen. If she's bad, she's gonna get put in handcuffs. I don't know. I guess
there's training for it, and that's what's upsetting. Like last year, I was an aide and I was in a kindergarten autistic classroom, and it was half day, self-contained, half day inclusion, and I was one-to-one for a very aggressive student, and this student would lash out, and it would put me, the teachers, and the other students in jeopardy. And he did need to be removed from the room. But he was removed from the room into a room that was empty. And he had his behavior, he got it out. If he needed to be restrained, he was restrained appropriately. If you arrested him, what would that have done? And I understand he had autism and he did have an IEP that required that, but not every child that has those tendencies is classified yet, especially at that age.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's one good point is, how do you, and I think that's extremely important as a teacher, how do you deal with a student that has a undiagnosed learning disability, or any type of undiagnosed issue or something that's in process? We're in a process of being evaluated by a child study team. How do you deal with that? What kind of strategies do you have to deal with that? And like I said, the strategies, that I employ, people that I work with that are 20 years old than me can't rush to disagree more. Like it's like, what are you doing? But I know, and I think part of this, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I think part of that is me as a parent. I see a lot differently now, and I look at a lot of kids like I said, well, would I want this to happen to my own child? I wouldn't want a child treated like that. So why am I going to treat this different? Now granted, I did two. My oldest son made communion this year, so I did two of the second grade communion workshops. Did the reconciliation one and the communion one. Way out of my comfort zone. I could say sit down and shut up. I really had to oh wow, okay, because they don't get at second grade that when I can't say, okay, I'm not talking, you're not. It's like, okay, like mouths are closed, ears are open. My kids at school do which is at home drives me crazy. But it's like, okay, what do I have to employ to get these kids to be quiet? When I'm ready to talk at Bergen, I stand there. I stand there and I give them the look, just like this. Good now, they're ready. Okay, but like the second graders would get that, So you really have to, you really got to think about how do I approach this, and a lot of the situations you're running into, some of you are common, How many times I hear from colleagues in other schools, and students at St. Peter's, I've got a kid that's unruly. I'll move the rest of the class out. I've got a deal. I've got a as an EMT what I would call a mutual aid agreement with the teacher next door. If I say, listen, I need to bring my class in, you're not going to ask me why. You're not going to tell me it's a bad time. You're going to let me do it because there's a reason I've got to deal with something in my classroom. And that's a proactive teacher. I'm not going to figure out, when the time is here, how do I deal with this kid who's tearing up the classroom? We're going to file out, whatever the case is. I'm going to tell the teacher next door, I'm bringing them in. Other teacher's going to take control or take responsibility for those kids, so that I can deal with what's in the classroom.
And Caitlin's kids were funny. Strategy. They would come in and they'd be like, "We're back." And I'd be like, "All right, hey guys," and they would just come right in.
Oh, it was like routine. Yeah.
And don't think that doesn't get home, because I hear it from my kids that all the time. Oh yeah, I was we had to go to this room today, or we all had to leave the room, or this or that, or whatever. So
we just had a field trip yesterday, and the parents that was like their number one topic with me.
Yeah.
That they haven't heard any stories recently, and I was like, oh yeah, there's a reason.
Yeah, it's very often very difficult when you see the parents, in a public setting, because they don't seem to remember sometimes that we all have, lives too. Like, let's talk about school. Let's talk about the dirt that happened. Like, I'm not,
the first grade dirt.
Yeah. So, but that's great. Those are great strategies for that kind of stuff, and those are all things to have in that toolbox, whether you're first year or 50 years. You got to have those strategies. So you're a proactive teacher. You're not, you don't want to be reactive, to a situation. It's like, how do I deal with this ahead of time? I'm sorry, I'm tweeting, not reactive. Sometimes I come up with good ideas myself. Thoughts? Because I know we just surpassed 10 o'clock. I'm it's getting near bedtime. The dog still wants to be fed. I know, and he probably's got to go out too. That's the barking. I know. Anybody with any last minute thoughts or questions or comments or great discussion. Not even good. It's a great discussion. And first of all, whether we had it in Jersey City in a classroom or we have it online, I think we accomplished the same thing. I think that's super. So just moving forward, we're going to do the Twitter chat in 2 weeks. I don't know my own syllabus because I'm doing 2 classes this summer session, and I always get both of them confused. So
you talking about the 502 Twitter?
The 502 Twitter chat. We're going to do that together. I don't know if I can surpass what some of you are doing with some of these other chats.
Yeah, I think I'm doing it wrong because I'm just in everybody's chat just talking.
That, you know what? That's the whole point, is that it's kind of, my kids love that, knock, knock, who's there? Interrupting Cal, boo! That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get into a Twitter chat, get your hands dirty, and pick up on a conversation. And some of you are just diving right in. Like, I can't, head first. I don't care how deep the water is. We're going right in. And that's great. And now some of you are like, you've probably made like 20 new Twitter friends. I'll follow you, you follow me. Like, I don't know you, but you kind of think the same way I do. Even though you might teach somewhere in like Kansas City, you're still the same, you got the same kind of pedagogy that I do. So when you tweet, when you do the outside chat, whatever your chat is, social studies chat, ed chat, ed leadership, teaching and learning, whatever it is, you just hashtag every time you tweet with that hashtag. When we do the 502 chat, you'll hashtag everything with 502. GE502.
What if we already started doing 502 and people are responding?
Well, that's good, because you've kind of started to do that independently. We're going to have an actual structured one, but that's okay. Some of you are throwing, I found myself conversing with some of you at all god awful hours about teaching and learning stuff. And I'm trying to get to everybody, at least to say, okay, I've recognized that you tweeted, and some of you are coming up with this is ongoing, which is great. And now as the teacher, I might say, maybe moving forward, maybe this might be, maybe I don't do it on one night for 1 hour. I have an ongoing semester long Twitter chat, because some of you have done that, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. So I'm, I might. I got to see, because I didn't structure it like that, so I'm not going to change it midstream. But moving forward, that might actually not be a bad idea, because, like I said, you're throwing out some good stuff, like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. I was having a discussion, I'm sorry, with someone in my other class about paperless. Last night, it was 10 o'clock. I'm like, I'm like 3 sheets to the wind. I'm laying in bed, and we're going back and forth on Twitter. It did start off like that. It started, hey, that's a good idea. She I found this cool resource online, and I commented. We're going back and forth, so I'm okay with that. And if I see enough of it, I might say, okay, you know what? You don't need to do the Twitter chat. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I might get there.
I was laughing because I don't have, before this class, I had no social media. I never had I still don't have Facebook. I don't have Instagram. One of my cheerleaders, I think, made me a Twitter because I used to stalk Rob Kardashian. Not anymore. So I had it for a little while, and then when you were like, oh, we have to have Twitter, I was freaking out, asking my kids, how do I, sign back into Twitter? And I actually found out through Twitter that my cousin's taking your 511 class because he tweeted me with, your name, and I was like, I texted him, I was like, you're taking his class? He's like, obviously. And I'm like, it's so funny because if not, my cousin's very quiet, and I would have never known that he was taking your class. But because on Twitter, he tweeted me. I was laughing.
Yeah, I did make the comment to the school administration class. I taught a year in Garfield for St. Peter's, so I did the MAT program cohort. And the one thing I learned in Garfield, and I'm sorry, Amy, everybody is related in Garfield. Everybody. If you work in Garfield, you have to be related to at least somebody else in the district.
They're my first cousins, both of them.
Angelo, and Carlo, it's yes, and I think Carlo is definitely more reserved. Angelo, he'll sell your own shoes.
Yes, yeah.
But I learned that. I'm like, this was related to this one, this was related to that one. I'm like, I'm just like, I made the joke and they didn't laugh at it the first day. I'm like, because then I found out, oh, this was. Okay, I get it. So yeah, it's Garfield's a very unique place, but yeah, I'm glad, and some of you, I'm glad to see that some of you in your Twitter chats have been like, I have no idea how to use this, but I'm going to learn, and and some of you, Jesus, I actually get thank yous, thank you for giving me this assignment because I'm really enjoying it, I want to frame this somewhere.
Your directions are unbelievable.
Impeccable.
Yeah, on point. I actually told my computer teacher, I'm like, come here. And he's like, what? I was like, you need to do this. And he's like, who is this guy? I'm like, he's awesome.
I just finished doing 2 courses with Quality Matters. St. Peter's is trying to move towards a I don't say standardized, but it's like a certification for online courses. So I did the peer reviewer, and I'm looking at my own courses, going, wow, all right. No, I got to see bad course, and I'm like, oh wow, I do that. How am I going to explain on the first day? You log into Blackboard. This is my first class at St. Peter's. It's an online course. What the hell do I do? So I'm like, all right, how do I do this? And I was doing the Camtasia project, so I'm like, let me do it this way. Now, maybe, I don't know if it'll be for the second summer or for the fall, but I might change that video to be a little bit more interactive and not just the presentation. But that's what you would get the first night, whether you saw me in person or whether you saw me online. So I was thinking about, let me do a hangout the first night. That's stupid. Watch the video when you can watch the video. And I'm like, I need every possible thing I can imagine, because I'm that type of student. You got to give me the syllabus. I hated professors who gave me oh, here's the chapters in the book, and here's my attendance policy. I need it spelled out for me, and that's what I was hoping that to come across with, and there last semester Twitter was tough. They were just like, why? I don't see the benefit of this. Same class, and now this session, like I could just say, forget everything else. We're just going to tweet. What the hell? We're just going to tweet. But that's the cool part, is that if you're doing this past the 2 that I want you to do, then that's when I say, oh, this has been a hit. This is successful because you're incorporating that as part of your professional life, and that's what I'm hoping for. So, but yeah, no, I'm glad that it's going well. I can see that's going well, because
Quick
at some of you
question.
were in the middle of the day. Yeah, in the middle of the day, you're tweeting. You're at 3 a.m. in the morning. You're tweeting. So, go ahead. Who had a question?
When we're tweeting every time, because I never had a Twitter account, this is my first time, so I just use it for this. So every time that I'm going to put out a tweet, I just do that hashtag GE502.
It helps for me because when I'm like right now in my other browser, I'm using TweetDeck. So I'm following. I have a GE502 hashtag that I'm following to see. The last one was 8 minutes ago, but I can see right away as people. It's easier for me to follow one hashtag than it is to follow all of you and see, okay, who's, So yes.
Is there an app for that?
You could get Twitter on your phone. Yeah, there's.
But is there like because I used TweetDeck when I did the assignment on my computer because it was easier to follow.
Yes.
Is there one for your phone? Because I find it really hard to follow.
Yeah, I would use Hootsuite. 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 It's a social media. You can still get it. There's a free version, and what that allows you to do is you could put in a hashtag search, a person search, and all that. So yeah, Hootsuite I would recommend. You create a Hootsuite account, then you tie in all your social media to the Hootsuite account. So if you're going to use it on the phone or the iPad, I say that's the best one to use.
Okay, and from my Twitter thing, I learned about this book, and I started reading it and had to stop because I couldn't put it down, and it's the end of the school year, so I don't have time for it.
Okay.
But it's all about creating the correct mindset in your classroom. So I figured since we were talking about classroom management, it'd be good to just throw it out there. It's called A Mindset for Learning.
A Mindset for Learning.
And it's written by 2 teachers.
Christine Roz.
Yeah, and Christine Roz and Christine Hertz.
Yeah, teaching the traits of joyful something.
Yeah.
All right,
I started reading it, and it was really interesting, so I had to stop reading it.
Okay.
Or I wasn't going to get my end of the school year stuff done. Or anything for this class.
I found it on Amazon, and I can't. There's no one. Where can I share? Try to.
But it's all about like creating a positive mindset, and based on the Twitter chat, all the people that had already read it said like they started using it in their classrooms the next day.
Cool. Oh, let me share this. Okay, let me share that. I don't want to say via share this. No, thank you. Let me get rid of the publisher so I can get the link in here. Now I'm okay. Perfect. Hashtag GE502. I just threw that up there. Yeah, that's you're all, which is really cool. You're all getting the idea of a professional learning community, where that's what you do. You say, hey, this is what I saw. This is really cool. Hey, what I saw, this is really cool. And you're sharing that, because so often in education, and I'm very guilty because I'm an only child. I don't share. No need for sharing. It's my stuff. They were my toys. I don't have to share. But just like I spent all this time doing all this work to prepare for my class, and I'm going to give it to you. But that's the whole idea, The more you share, the more you share resources, then that's the professional part of the learning community, is when we're collegial with one another. So yeah, that's cool, and that's what the Twitter's for too. Throw some out. You know what? Either that, or you have an insight, or you have, what? I had a terrible day today, or whatever. That's what Twitter is there for. It becomes that support structure for you too, in a lot of different ways. So definitely use it for all that it's worth. Anything else?
No.
Before the dog pisses on the floor.
Bedtime.
Yeah, I see some of you have changed your positions in the last hour to much more of a reclining type. I see some. I think I had one student once, and all of a sudden I just saw like the iPad or whatever it was. It kind of just, you heard it drop, and it just kind of it was there. Like I'm sure somebody fell asleep. There. I know that listening to me potentially could be it's good. If you have young children, put me on and I'll put them right to sleep or replay the class for them. But yeah. So if there's nothing else, I'll see you on Twitter in 2 weeks for the chat. If you need me, reach out. I'll try and answer as quick as I can. But if you need me for anything, holler. I'll get this link up probably in the morning on Blackboard. So if that's it, I bid you a good night. Let me go walk the dog and try to put my kids to bed because they're probably still running around waiting for Daddy. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.